السلام علیکم، وقت همتون بخیر، شام بخیر افغانستان. خوش آمدین به روز دوم دفست افغانستان. خدا کنه که روز اول برنامه به خوبی تیر شده باشه و امروز هم شما رو داشته باشیم در لایو برنامه و هم قسمی که در اجندا دیدین. امروز هم تاک های مختلف در بخش های مختلف و با اسپیکر های مختلف از جاهای مختلف داریم و همراهیتان هم میخوایم در برنامه. سلامت باشین. اسپیکر اول ما آقای جولیوس است که همراه ما یک جای شدن و در مورد scientific leadership انشالله همراه ما صحبت میکنن. Hello Julius, welcome to DevFest Afghanistan.
Thank you for having me. Very excited.
Thanks so much for joining us. And here you go. We are eagerly waiting for your talk.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. So I think I need to put up the slides.
Okay.
Okay, we're just trying to set up the slides here. Okay, cool. Awesome. Hey everyone. So good to see you all. My limited Farsi vocabulary wants to say Salam Alaikum. So good to see you all, and I hope that this will be a very good DevFest for you all. And let's get on to it. So let's start off with a simple question, actually. So as you might know, along the next 30 to 40 minutes, we're going to talk about different research around how we can become much more productive, how we can use scientists' research in order to improve our leadership, as well as our collaboration across multiple segments in the organization. So that having said, here's one research. So in the video game industry, the question is, which of these contributes to the most revenue? Game design, middle management, or company brand? So I won't be able to see the responses in Facebook and YouTube immediately, but I do encourage you to share what you think, and then I'll proceed to show you what the answer is. So did you get it? It turns out, because we're talking about leadership here, it's actually the middle management that actually contributes significantly to the revenue above company brand and game design. Now, if you look at it, almost everyone is a middle manager. So we all start off as software engineers, perhaps. We are at the bottom doing our stuff, and we report to managers. And with a series of managers above them, eventually they'll reach the CEO. And we might think that, okay, there's no one else above the CEO, right? But it turns out there's actually the board of directors in publicly traded companies and companies with investors, whereby they're the one who actually check whether the CEO is doing a good job or he has to be replaced. So even the CEO actually is a middle manager. And now we are thinking that perhaps the board of directors don't report to anyone, right? But that's not really true. It turns out in publicly traded companies, the board of directors also report to investors, which means that for the most part, most of us are actually manager at some point. In fact, even as individual contributors, we also manage our peers and our relationship with them as well. What the research is starting to tell us is that apart from company brand and the product, the most important element that identifies the success of a company or a product is actually the people. That having said, though, only 1 out of 10, according to a research done by Gallup, only 1 out of 10 managers have a high talent to effectively manage others. 2 out of 10 have functioning managerial talent. What that means is that with enough training, they're able to become average. What this means is that 7 out of 10 actually do not have the proper capacity to become a good leader, to become a good manager, which actually is quite striking. Because a similar research done by Gallup shows that companies with highly engaged employees, that means companies with very good managers, actually outperform their peers by as much as 147%. So let me be a bit clear here. We're not talking about a 47 improvement in terms of productivity. We're talking about 147%. What that means is that a company generally doubles their headcount and more. So now we're going to talk about scientific leadership, where I'll show you about a dozen or so research around how we can learn how to hack our brains, hack our minds, and see how we can interact productively with people in order to produce significant value. So let's start off with the fairness study. This will be about a 2-minute video, and take a look. And once the video is done, let's see how it goes.
So a final experiment that I want to mention to you is our fairness study. And so this became a very famous study, and there's now many more, because after we did this about 10 years ago, it became very well known. And we did that originally with capuchin monkeys, and I'm going to show you the first experiment that we did. It has now been done with dogs and with birds and with chimpanzees, but with Sarah Brosnan we started out with capuchin monkeys. So what we did is we put 2 capuchin monkeys side by side. Again, these animals, they live in a group. They know each other. We take them out of the group, put them in a test chamber. And there's a very simple task that they need to do. And if you give both of them cucumber for the task, the 2 monkeys side by side, they're perfectly willing to do this 25 times in a row. So cucumber, even though it's really only water in my opinion, but cucumber is perfectly fine for them. Now, if you give the partner grapes, the food preferences of my capuchin monkeys correspond exactly with the prices in the supermarket. And so if you give them grapes, that's a far better food, then you create inequity between them. So that's the experiment we did. Recently, we videotaped it with new monkeys who had never done the task, thinking that maybe they would have a stronger reaction, and that turned out to be right. The one on the left is the monkey who gets cucumber. The one on the right is the one who gets grapes. The one who gets cucumber, note that the first piece of cucumber is perfectly fine. The first piece she eats. Then she sees the other one getting grape, and you will see what happens. So she gives a rock to us, that's the task. And we give her a piece of cucumber, and she eats it. The other one needs to give a rock to us. And that's what she does. And she gets a grape. And she eats it. The other one sees that. She gives a rock to us now, gets again cucumber. She tests the rock now against the wall. She needs to give it to us. And she gets cucumber again. So this is basically the Wall Street protest that you see here.
So notice what they found out. Remember that earlier the scientists mentioned that so long as both of them are receiving cucumbers, the monkeys are totally fine. However, when one monkey sees the other monkey getting a grape and he gets a cucumber, he's extremely upset. Now, here's the thing. Traditional economics tell us that the monkey should not have been upset. And the reason is this. The value of the cucumber is much more important, much more valuable than a rock, primarily because the monkey is not able to eat the rock, but he can eat the cucumber. However, when he sees the other monkey having a grape where he only had a cucumber, given a cucumber in exchange for a rock, given that both of them actually exchange a rock for something, he's upset, primarily because the grape tastes better. This is also very similar to how we behave as humans. The idea is that it's not about traditional economics. So, traditional economics predict that we are fully rational creatures. So, if I'm being rational, as long as I am able to exchange something that's more valuable than what I'm going to give, I need to accept it and be happy about it. That's what traditional economics predict. However, a newer strain of study in economics, which is called behavioral economics, tell us that we are not just rational creatures, we are also emotional creatures as well. We tend to compare not just the exchange between both parties, but also the overall context by which the other party trades with the people of my kind as well. Now, we have seen this in monkeys, but the same experiment is also uh, observable in human beings. So, what this tells us is that we are not fully rational, and that's just how our brains are designed to function. The way the brain works is something like this. So, of course, we are not going to tackle the entire breadth of the function of the brain, but two very important areas of the brain that's beneficial for this talk is the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala. So the prefrontal cortex is actually the part of the brain that activates when we are making rational decisions. Think about when you're writing a software program or you're thinking about what to design or like coming up with a new product, a new feature, or what areas of your code to test. These are the ones, this area of the brain is the one that opens up, it's the one that functions. We also have our amygdala. So the amygdala is quite an interesting part of the brain. So what it does is that it regulates the fight or flight of our system. So what does that mean? The whole idea is that whenever we feel fear, anger, disgust, the amygdala activates. It's the one that says, should I fight or should I flee? Now, the way the amygdala works as well is that the moment it activates, it shuts down the prefrontal cortex. Does it make sense? All of us might have, I would say, all of us should have run into an issue back in the past whereby we have done something which felt good at that time and then later on we regret. And the primary reason for that is that the amygdala was active at that point and it shuts down the rational part of the brain. That's why we make mistakes and then we come up with regrets later on. Now, how does it translate to the medical field? Well, it turns out that in the medical field, a research was done whereby it says that about 71% of the errors in the medical field could have been avoided. Does it make sense? In the medical field, people are extremely pressured because they're dealing with things that are matters of life and death. Unlike software engineers, where when you make mistakes, you're likely not going to cost a life or two. What this means as well, if you look at the research, is that as much as 27% of deaths could have been avoided. And that's because the amygdala is active at that point. Another study done by Pearson and Porat surveys around 14,000 employees in US and Canada, whereby they found out that the moment the amygdala activates, which is when there's toxicity at work, when people are not being treated properly, well, 48% decrease their work effort, decrease their time, and in fact, as much as 80% of people in the workplace actually lose time worrying about the incident. 80%, which means that incivility at work has a significant cost in terms of reducing the productivity at work. How do we solve this? Well, Google says that it's important to establish psychological safety. In fact, a research done by Google internally shows that apparently in Google they have 5 important virtues that they require employees to adhere to. These are the 5 that you're seeing here. But psychological safety is far higher than all other 4, such that even if those other 4 are not there, as long as people feel safe, Google thinks that people are actually more willing to admit errors, seek feedback, and do things that poses a threat. They are more likely to take risks that will produce positive value for the company. So Google thinks that psychological safety is the most important thing that people should have in a company. Further research was done later on, whereby they found out that indeed psychological safety is now a virtue that pervades Silicon Valley, and hence I think it could be argued to some extent that the contribution done by psychological safety in those areas have actually increased innovation and productivity as well. It's important for us to build trust. A study in Cornell shows that whenever idea conflict happens, it can eventually degrade into relationship conflict. It's very common, primarily because the moment there's a conflict of ideas, it's very difficult to differentiate ideas from relationship because we are tied to our own ideas. So how do you solve it? Well, you have to build trust, because in building trust, people will have a good enough anchor to actually protect the relationship whenever there's a difference in ideas. Because in building trust and having a good relationship, an idea conflict is now seen from a perspective whereby both of you are actually looking at the benefit of the company or the organization together, even if you see the world differently. A Harvard Business School study shows that when direct reports are told to do something, every one of us have experienced this at some point. Whenever we are told by our boss to do something, in all reality, we don't necessarily respond. In fact, the more talented we are, it turns out that we don't respect authority. It's because the manager has to earn our respect. Now, it turns out that it's the manager's authority emerges only if he's able to establish credibility with his subordinates, peers, and superiors. How they do that? Well, it turns out that if there's anything that we want to take away from this talk, it's actually this line. It's important for us to listen. It's very important for us to take time to do active listening so that we can fully understand what the other person is saying. And if it's unclear, we ask questions. Listening is a very important skill, and it with so many research that has already been done prior to this shows that listening can actually significantly increase productivity just by listening, and we are not very good at it in general as human beings. Another tip here is that it's interesting because whenever you establish positivity in the workplace, whenever people feel joyful, they feel safe, they feel playful, um, they are more creative, they become more creative. And the reason is because that's just the nature the brain works. Whenever you feel safe, you're more willing to take risks. So a suggestion is that you always have to ask, how can I make a certain idea work? Remember, in a meeting, whenever you're throwing out ideas, whenever you're brainstorming, an idea when it's first proposed is usually very raw, which means that without further nudges, without further refinements of the idea might just die. But that could be an idea that would lead you to something else, which will, in overall context, help the company and help the team. Again, we have to be very mindful of how the brain works, because the moment we know the brain works, we can become aware of our biases and actually reactivate the prefrontal cortex when the amygdala starts to activate. Another interesting research that was done a few years ago is about confidence. Well, think about it this way. Whenever you see someone in television, in Facebook perhaps, or in YouTube, and they look so confident, here's what's happening to us. We think that we equate confidence with competence. We think that when a person is very eloquent, when they say things confidently, it must be true, right? Well, it turns out that that's not the case, really. It's a psychological illusion, if I may. So the appearance of confidence actually make you feel certain in the absence of supporting data. And that's because of a psychological bias called the certainty effect, whereby the idea is people are more willing to latch into feelings of uncertainty, not thinking, not rational, feelings of certainty, even if the odds say otherwise. We don't have enough time to discuss this, but if you want to Google this one, you'll see a lot of research done in this field. So here's a research done in relation to confidence. So here's the thing. There might be a lot of words here, but the whole research is about playing a game, and people with different level of skill set were asked to play the game. So those with number 4 here, if you look at the horizontal graph, are the ones that are actually the best at playing. And then the vertical graph is the percentage of confidence relative to their competence. So look at number 1, for example, whereby you have a significant amount of people who are overconfident, the blue color. And then as you progress in terms of your sophistication, look at the one on the far right, the one in number 4. They have the most concentration of people who are underconfident. Did you see the contrast? The more competent the person is, the more underconfident they are likely going to be. It's a very stark contrast with what we are forced to believe. And it's not rare, actually. This is something that has been researched for a very long time. It's the Dunning-Kruger effect. Many of you might have known this, whereby at the initial influx of knowledge, a person will start to think that I know everything. But then as he goes deeper into that knowledge, the more he starts to realize that, oh my God, the ocean is actually for so much more larger than for me to be able to actually swallow. And that's just the whole idea. That's just a psychological illusion that we all run into. So be very careful of confidence, because that doesn't necessarily mean that the person who's talking about it or who's explaining some matter is actually good at it. It might be, so confidence, interestingly, is very good in sales and marketing, because in sales, it's a transferring of confidence that helps you land a sale. But in software engineering, it's a different field. Whenever you employ knowledge workers to solve a problem, confidence should not have any value. It should always be based on data. A research done by Tom Nichols in his book, The Death of Expertise, shows that there's a massive lack of a skill for most of us, which is called the metacognition. So, a metacognition is our ability to actually take a step back and think about whether what we are doing or what we are saying is right or wrong. Here's another research. You see a wall of text, and we're not going to go to all of them, but of course, GDG in Afghanistan will have a replay available. So if you want to read, you can always read it after the fact. But here's the thing. Let me go back a few slides into this slide. So what that previous slide tells you is this. So what they did was they paired up people who have low degree of sophistication, those who are less competent but very confident, with people who are very competent but are underconfident. So two people, they paired together. So what they did was they paired different people with different levels of confidence and competence. Here's what happened. It turns out that the farther the gap of confidence between the one who's least competent and the one who's most competent, when this guy actually outshines this guy in terms of confidence but not competence, the worse they perform. Which means that the research concludes that the unjustified role of confidence in decision-making process often leads teams to underperform. Um, Another research done by Robert Burton, a former chief neurologist, says that even though we are inclined to want certainty, to feel certain, certainty is not biologically possible. So, what he advised everyone to do is to tolerate the unpleasantness of uncertainty. We need to be aware, and we need to be cognizant of the fact that certainty is not just, it's just not achievable uh, because of our limited capacity to fathom all things. Again, our brain is playing tricks on us, so we have to be very careful on how our brain operates, so that once we know how it operates, we can call out our biases and reactivate the prefrontal cortex. Again, we should let the data speak and not let confidence sway us, because confidence is not competence. Here's another thing, science behind human motivation. Well, in the 1940s, 1950s, people think that money is equal to performance. The moment you hand money to other people, then they will perform better. And this has been proven. In the industrial age, they have done this for decades, and it worked. Well, it turns out that things have shifted in the 20th century, in the late 20th century, and now the 21st century. So Dunker was a researcher, and what he did was he came up with the candle problem. So here's the idea. So you have a candle, you have a box of thumbtacks, and you have matches. And what he told his subjects is to actually light the candle. So they light the candle, but then the candle wax should not fall on the table. So what he told his subject is that, okay, I just want to measure how long on the average a person takes to solve the problem. So I'm going to pause for a bit. Maybe some of you might want to try to solve the problem. I'll pause for about 10-15 seconds, and then I'll show you what the answer is. So when I've given this talk in Singapore, in Malaysia, in Philippines, and even in Kyrgyzstan, everyone got some level of answer actually. So there's actually multiple ways to solve the problem, and here's one of them. All you have to do is actually nail the box, on the wall, and then the wax will not drip on the table. So that's one way to solve it. So here's what he did, Dunker. So remember on the first group of people, he actually says, okay, I just want to figure out how long does it take for an average person to solve the problem. Here's what he said to the second group. He says that, all right, if you are able to solve this and you're at the top 25%, we're going to give you $5. And then if you are the fastest, you're going to get $20. Now, if money is equal to performance, people will think that Group B will perform better because there's money, right? Well, it turns out that after the research, they found that Group B took 210 seconds longer, that's 3.5 minutes, longer than Group A on the average to solve the puzzle. Super interesting. Well, what happened? Well, Dunker says that as long as the task does not require creative problem solving, monetary rewards such as carrot on stick work. Again, if the task does not require creative problem solving, then money works. Now, why is that? Well, it turns out that when they study the brain, there's only a limited capacity that we can hold on our brain. So, whenever you have more items that you're thinking about, you have less and less mental real estate to process everything else, which means that you are actually hamstringing yourself whenever you add things to think about while solving problems. Now, what does it have to do with money? Well, when they're trying to solve the candle problem, they're thinking about, okay, I want to be the best, I want to get the reward, that's why I'm going to perform better. But it turns out it's the opposite. Now, science behind human motivation. All of us are getting paid somehow for our professional services, and that's good. Now, some of us think that we are underpaid, right? Well, how do you solve this as a CEO, perhaps someone who's holding the money, or perhaps a CFO? Well, uh, Daniel Pink, author of Drive, he says that well, you have to pay employees just enough to get the monetary concern out of the way. Now, to be clear, what he's trying to say is that don't underpay your employees, and he is also saying do not overpay your employees. And here's the thing, many of us think that, I just don't want to be underpaid, but I can, get double, triple my salary, 10 times my salary. That's totally fine. But it turns out that it will actually suppress my productivity as well in this way. The moment a person feels, again, feels, the moment a person feels that he's getting paid significantly above what he thinks he should be getting paid for, what's running in his mind then is that is he performing enough to justify the pay that he's getting? So now things are being added to the mental real estate, which prevents further thinking from being much more productive than what we wanted it to be. So again, the idea is pay employees just enough, and then you provide them with as much intrinsic motivation as possible. So how do we provide intrinsic motivation? Well, Daniel Pink thinks that there are three things that we have to be mindful of. One is to give people the autonomy, the freedom to actually be in control. So micromanagement turns out to be something I guess many of us know now to be unproductive. However, micromanagement is very useful for newcomers, for the junior engineers. The reason is this: the junior engineers doesn't know a lot about what they have to do. They're trying to figure their way out in the world. It's just their first time going to the job market and actually performing. And so for a junior engineer, micromanagement is important to get them jump started. Another reason why you want to micromanage junior engineers is actually number two: mastery. People want to feel that they become expert in what they're doing. Finally, purpose. People also want to feel again. They want to feel. They want to feel that what they're doing actually has purpose. So so long as what they're doing in their company allows them to have sufficient amount of autonomy, that they're learning something, quote unquote, mastery, and they see it to be purposeful, it's going to be something that they will find rewarding, and they will stay. They will keep being productive. These are some of the faces that I think some of us might know. You see Mark Zuckerberg here, Steve Jobs, Jeff Bezos. Someone who's not very familiar is probably this guy, Bill Campbell, CEO of Intuit. Well, it turns out it's a probably a best kept secret of Silicon Valley is that Bill Campbell is actually the mentor of all those nine. Um, Bill Campbell passed away in 2015, and Eric Schmidt, former CEO of Google, wrote a book about Bill Campbell where it talks about him as the trillion-dollar coach, primarily because Amazon, Apple, Google, and Microsoft, even Facebook, combined together, they make up several trillion dollars of uh, you know uh, investment money. Well, one of the things that Bill Campbell has always championed is what you call organizational compassion. It turns out that American behavioral scientists, out of their research, they says that organizational compassion is when team members feel that they're actually part of the entire endeavor together. Now, many of us have been trained, perhaps not in the recent years, but prior to this, that you put your emotions out of the door, and then you come to work, and then you work, and then you get out of work, bring your emotions with you back home. So we are not uh, encouraged to actually show organizational compassion, even if we should. Well, it turns out that when you promote organizational compassion, there's a lot of benefits that people may enjoy. Now, let me take a step back here and look at this. Gallup made a research about whether female managers are better or male managers are better. Well, here's the result. It turns out that female managers are better. Why? Because the research shows that female managers and female in general have better empathy. And empathy is a very good predictor of successful leadership. Essentially, even interpersonal skills, interpersonal communication between software engineers and so forth, empathy is quite important because only with empathy can you understand what the other person is running into and find a common ground whereby you can solve problems together. A Harvard Business School study shows that people don't just chafe against authoritarian management style, but they're also more likely to leave the team altogether. Again, organizational compassion, quite important. Eric Schmidt, former CEO of Google, noted that companies led by servant leaders have higher return of assets than companies led by narcissists. And this is not just Eric Schmidt saying it. Peterson actually came up with the research as well, which produced the same result. George Mason noted that organizational compassion results in higher employee satisfaction, better teamwork, lower absenteeism, and better team performance. Now, we don't have much time left for this talk, but here's a summary of what we have discussed so far. We have seen at the beginning of this talk that humans are emotional, rational decision makers. We are not fully rational, we are very emotional. So, there are three things that we sort of run into, if you might recall. Number one, negative emotions will dampen our productivity because the amygdala activates, the prefrontal cortex deactivates. So, how do we fix this? Well, we establish psychological safety, we build trust, we establish positivity in the workplace because when people feel positive, they are more creative, and we need to always listen. Confidence can be misleading. Confidence is not competence. As we have shown, people who are most confident are also most likely to be underconfident. And so when we see people, confident people, sharing stuff, pushing things to get done, always ask for hard evidence because data is it's the key. It's the main balancer. It's the one that uh, makes us look beyond confidence and actually see what exactly is going on. Next, humans are driven by extrinsic and intrinsic motivation. Yes, we need to get paid, but we need to get paid just enough to get the monetary concern out of the way. And then people needs to be given enough autonomy, enough mastery, and enough purpose to continue to produce value for the team and for the organization. And to close everything up, always emphasize organizational compassion. Here are some books that I might want to recommend if leadership is something that you're quite interested in, or in essence, just becoming a good engineer, perhaps a good designer, a good product manager. Here are some books that might be interesting for you. Here are some other books that you might be interested. And here are some more books. Again, there will be a replay of this, so you'll be able to see the books even if I go too fast. Here are also all the reference that I have used in this talk. More reference right here and more reference. I think that's it. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for listening. I hope you have a wonderful DevFest for the rest of the day. Have a good day.
Hi, and thank you, Julius, for your talk. It was really informative, and I'm sure everyone learned a lot from you.
Thank you, Sammy.
Thanks. خب خدمت همه شما سلام دوباره. آمدیم به کدینگ چالنجی که امروز داریم. کدینگ چالنج امروز جاواست و من شیر میکنم سکرینه که ببینین. این کد چالنج امروز است. کسایی که میخواین کد چالنج جواب بدن و جایزه کمو گوگل هم مینیسته به دست بیارن. این کد چالنج ما جاواست و 5 دقیقه وقت داریم. تایم شما شروع شده. دیگه ما ببینیم که اولین کامنت از کی میاد و کی اما اوتپوت که خواسته شده را اجرا خواهد کرد. دایی به من فقط اوتپوت نمی کامند آخر کار است در جواب همه کد آخر. سو منتظر می باشیم که کی اول جواب میده. اوکی. هستی بفون جواب درست نیست. سر منتظر می باشیم کسی جواب صحیح رو به ما دقیقاً اوتپوت اینمی دو پرنت که داخل شده جواب است. نه خیر، صبورم اشتباه کرد. نه خیر جوابش نیست. نه خیر شاقسی هم جواب نیست. نه خیر، تا هنوز کسی نتونسته جواب دقیقه بده. نه خیر. نه خیر، دقیق شدن کد بشه دقیق شدن جواب چیز دیگه است. سه دقیقه دیگه مانده از چالش. نه خیر، تا حال کسی جواب نداده. نه خیر، هنوز جواب داده نشده. جواب که داده شده اشتباه است. نه خیر اشتباه است. نه خیر، آوتپوت مکمل باید داده شود. نه خیر، دال کس جواب نداده، بخاطر که آوتپوت مکمل باید داده شود. قسمتش شاید تانستین ولی آوتپوت مکمل یک هند بودم که یک قسمتش دادم ولی آوتپوت مکمل کار است. نه خیر، جواب نداده. آوتپوت مکمل دال کسی نداده و کسی دال جواب دقیق داده نتونسته. نه اشتباه است هنوزم. من یک هنت دیگه هم میتونم که قسمت آوتپوت دقیق تر ببینین و قسمت قبلیش که هست فانکشن ها دقیق ترش هم قسمت قیمت ها. نزدیک شدن به جواب. اوکی، 1 دقیقه دیگه مونده ولی آوتپوت هنوزم مکمل به ما کمی داده نشده. هنوزم قسمتش اشتباهه. هنوزم به درست نمیده. یک هنت دیگه هم همگی میتونم که 3 آوتپوت است. آوتپوت یکی نیست، یک مثلا نیست، 3 آوتپوت است و نظر به کد 3 آوتپوت هر 3 شو باید شما بگوین. نه خیلی تا حالا کسی جواب دادن نتونسته. هر 3 آوتپوت باید داده شود وقت جواب مکمل. اگر کسی بتونه که هر 3 آوتپوت بده بعد برنده خواهد شد. فعلا کسی نتونسته. We still have time. نه خیلی جواب هنوز داده نشده. نه خیر، هنوز هم جواب داده نشده. نه خیر، هنوز هم اشتباه است. نه خیر، هنوزم کسی نتونسته جواب بده. نه خیر، تا حالا جواب اشتباه است. هنوزم دقیق نیست. تایم ما کم است ولی هنوزم جواب داده نشده. خب فکر نکنم اگه کسی طالب پیدا کرده باشه و وقت زیاده هم نموند. بهتر است که تایم خلاص است. آوتپوت به شما کامنت خواد کردیم و فکر کنم آوتپوت حالا کامنت خواد شد. جواب صحیحی است که I جمع J is 23, K is 3 and J is 0. این قسمت است که متاسفانه جواب کسی دادن نتونست و جواب اصلی نمیست. خب سپیکر بعدی ما کامنت انسور شده و سپیکر بعدی ما جاوید محمدی است که در مورد کاتلین صحبت خواد کردن. کاتلین. جاوید محمدی خوش آمدید.
سلام علیکم استاد، زنده باشین. تشکر. سلام علیکم. خوب هستین جانتون جو؟
خوشحال هستم. خیر باشین. سلامت باشین.
زنده باشین. تشکر. من هم خیلی خوشحال هستم. اوکی.
ډیره مننه جاوید احمد صاحب. ښه راغلاست DevFest ته.
تشکر. زنده باشین. من خیلی خوشحال هستم که اینجا هستم. تشکر از دعوتتون. خب من اسکرین خود شیر کنم. اسکرین ما فول معلوم میشه؟ هلو؟ هلو؟ اسکرین ما فول معلوم میشه؟ اوکی. Okay, great. So hello everyone. This is Ahmed Joid Mohammadi. I'm a senior Android developer. Okay, still I'm not sure if everything is working or not. Okay, yeah, everything is working. Okay. So yeah. So okay, hello everyone. This is Ahmed Joid Mohammadi. I'm a senior Android developer at Kaleido Solutions Pvt Limited. It is an American-based company in India, and also I have worked with many big and startup companies like Linter Artificial Intelligence, Software Technologies Limited, and Softfilm in India. And then also I have worked with Google as a student developer in Google Summer of Code 2020, which is a highly competitive program by Google for student developers around the world. So today I'm really excited, happy, and honored to be here to have a session about Android development with Kotlin. I hope you're gonna have a good time. So let's start it. So here's our roadmap for today. First, I'm going to talk about Kotlin history. Then I'll give introduction to Kotlin basics. Then we're going to create a Book My Show clone app with Kotlin. And at the end, I'm going to show some useful resources to learn Kotlin and Android development. So here is our application. And today I'm going to show you how you can create an application like this, which shows a list of movies. Because of time constraint, I already have written the code of this project, which you can find the link from the description of this video if you're watching from YouTube or the Facebook. You should be able to find that. Here is that repo. So all the instructions and information about the repo is there. You can make a fork from here. You can make your own copy or just clone from here or download it and open it under Studio. So let's start. Okay. So actually what Kotlin it is, what Kotlin is. So Kotlin is an expressive programming language with a strong type system. It has lambdas, coroutines properties, and many other features that lets you write less code with fewer bugs. It really started taking off in recently, but actually it's been in 2011. It open sourced in 2012, which developed in JetBrains. It reached version 1.0 in 2016. And version 1.4 was just recently in this month of 2020. Since 2017, it has been officially supported language for Android development by Google. Now Google goes Kotlin first. All their libraries like JPEG libraries or documentation is all in Kotlin right now. See. Okay, actually, so in this session we have our actually to talk Persian. Actually, I wanted to talk Persian, but in this session we have our companies from India. We have many friends. They asked me to talk in English, so that is why I'm presenting this in English, if it is not a problem. So in here the total yearly years. So number of people who have edited Kotlin code in last 12 months is just amazing. In 2017, it was 1 million, and in 2019, it reached to 6 million. It means that developers are really liking and loving this Kotlin language, and it's really being started popular. And also, when we talk about, it's not only about building application or writing code, it is also about it, community helping each other. So a lot of developers are creating videos or writing blogs and also talking conferences like this. So, and also the growth in answering the questions in Stack Overflow just has been amazing since 2017. It is kind of 50 to 60% improvement. So we know that what is Kotlin, then let's say why Kotlin. So yeah, there is no null pointer exception in Kotlin. You heard it right? Yeah, so we all know that null pointer exceptions are very bad. They have been responsible for huge financial losses for many companies, computer crashes, Android or iOS application crashes, and hours of debugging madness for developers. So, but no more in Kotlin. Kotlin take care of nullable and non-nullable data types. So it helps us to reduce compile time errors. A lot of errors in compile time, not in the runtime. So you will not be surprised if you solve all the problems in compile time. So this is the one of the best feature of Kotlin. And also you can use Kotlin and Java together, which means that you can continue to use your favorite libraries of Java and Kotlin project. And also it means that you can start using Kotlin in your existing Java projects side by side without, there is no need to migrate the whole Java project in Kotlin. So that is actually a big win. So if you really want to migrate whole your Java projects, the whole code to the Kotlin, then Android Studio and IntelliJ IDEs provide handy converters for that. So one of my application has kind of 100,000 downloads and daily thousands of users. So first it was in Java. I only had 85 to 90% crash-free users. After migrating my application to Kotlin, now I have something around 97 and 98% crash-free users. That's just amazing. And also Kotlin code is very, very concise. What I mean by concise is, we all know what is boilerplate code, right? Boilerplate code is the code we have to type, but it doesn't have to do anything with the functionality of the application. Like in a Java class, we have a Java class like this for a Puja Java class, because of one attribute you have, I'm sure you have written many getter and setter trivial methods, right? And so in Kotlin, there is no, you need to do this kind of things. Compiler does it for you. For example, this class, like public class movie, it with kind of with 20 lines of code. The same code in Kotlin is just one line of code. It is amazing, isn't it? Kotlin really helps us to focus on really functionalities rather than thinking about the code itself. So that is why I really like the Kotlin. So we know what is Kotlin and why Kotlin. Then let's see what we can do with Kotlin. So according to me, Kotlin is kind of a box of chocolate. You can take whatever you want, your favorite one. You can do server-side development. It is 100% compatible with JVM and Spring Boot library. And also you can do web development. And also you can do this. You can create this type of application. You can use your favorite Java UI frameworks like JavaFX, Swing, and other libraries. Also, you can create native development. Obviously, we are doing for Android development. So one of the base key benefit of Kotlin is KMP, Kotlin multi-platform programming. Actually, this is my favorite because from one code base, you can create application for different operating system or different platforms. So it reduces a lot of time. For example, in our company at Kalizo, now we have two different projects for same code. One is iOS for iOS, Swift for iOS, and the other is for Android. We're using Java. So we decided to go with Kotlin multi-platform. So it helps us to reduce a lot of time. From one code base, we can create application for multiple platforms like iOS, Android, and web by retaining the good point is by retaining the native development benefits. So it is the good point actually. So now we know what is Kotlin, what we can do with Kotlin, and why Kotlin. Then I'll give you some introduction to basics of Kotlin. I assume that you guys already know modern programming language, object programming language, like object-oriented programming language, like Java or C++. So let's get started. Yeah, there are two types of variables in Kotlin: changeable and changeable. In other means, you can say mutable and immutable. So with 12, you can declare a variable, and once you assign it a value for that, you cannot reassign it again. If you reassign a value for a val variable, then you'll get a compile time error. For example, in here, so it's this count is all count. Here is a kind of a syntax of declaring and initializing a variable in Kotlin. Like while count is the name of the variable and its data type, and you are assigning a variable. So, and also we can write a variable, declare a variable without specifying its data type. Kotlin knows from context itself. And with var, we can declare variables and then reassign values many times we want. So in here we say we are assigning the name to this. In Kotlin also, you can initialize a variable by null value also. So if you want to do this, you have to put a question mark in here because we are not sure that whenever we call the API from backend that movie list will be null or not. That is why Kotlin gives this functionality too. And also sometimes we need to declare a variable in the top of the class as a general. At that time, we can use let init. So actually in Kotlin, once you create a variable, declare a variable, you have to initialize also. But with let init, you promise to the Kotlin that, yeah, for now you don't want to initialize, but whenever the application is live and create you are on in other function, you're gonna initialize it. If you don't initialize that variable, you're gonna get a exception in during compiling, an error. I mean, so now it's got about the functions. Functions are declared by fun keyword in Kotlin. Here is the simple syntax of function. It starts by function name, then the parameters. The parameters type is very important. You have to write that, otherwise you cannot get the function. And after the colon, and it's the return type. So in Kotlin, everything returns something. So if you don't write anything in here, any data type, then it will return something called unit. So in here you can add integer or float, anything you want to return. So the return type will be written in here. And it's a simple string. So one good thing is in here, this $sign. In Kotlin, using a $sign, you can pass the value of a variable in here. So it will return something happy 20th birthday like Ahmed or Ali. You can use that. So this $sign use the value of this parameters, not itself. It's going to use the value. And in Java, we have to do a lot of concatenation and use plus. And as I said that Kotlin does not allow null pointer to return null, right? In here, if you have a function and it returns a string, but if you try to return a null value, then that time will give an error. But if you really like null pointer exception, then Kotlin will keep you them. So in here, like in this function, it is returning by not no assertion operator or double exclamation mark. If you put this and you're saying the Kotlin that, okay, I know it's null, and just accept it. And Kotlin also accept that, but you're going to get a null pointer exception and your application going to crash. So this is the point. And also classes. Class are the same. Class are declared by class name. And class, here's a syntax, simple syntax. So it's started by class keyword and the class name. And so in Kotlin, we have two types of constructors. What's called primary constructor and the secondary constructor. We only can have one primary constructor and many secondary constructors. So primary constructor is a part of the class's name header. It starts after the name of the class like this, at the braces, and it starts. So you can write the parameter in here. It acts like a constructor. And also one good thing about Kotlin is you can declare your variable right away inside the constructor like this. And also you can give default value for that, like between C++. And after curly braces, we have the body of the class. So to create an object of that class, you have to create a variable like this, while movie and its data type. Then you have to write the class name itself and pass the values for its parameters. You don't need like any keyword reserved keyword like new as we do in Java. So there are some special Kotlin classes that provides. So in software development, like especially in Android development, sometimes some classes acts a container for storing data. Like in here, we have a person. It has name and last name. So it will be, we add a data prefix for that. So it has a lot of benefits. Like it overrides the toString function, which we can print, and also it overrides the equal function into the that class, a class during compile time, so we can compare to object of a class. Another special Kotlin classes kind of is object. It is used for making a class singleton. We know in Java, if you want to make a class singleton, then you have to write a lot of code. But Kotlin hopefully help us to avoid all those boilerplate code. So only by one keyword, we can create a singleton class. Okay, a lot of theory. Okay, now let's do some good things, some magics with Kotlin. So actually, what is UI and UX in Android? So UI stands for user interface, and UX stands for user experience. UI is the thing which you open your application and you see some text, some image, anything in screen. That is UI. And UX is another point. It is related to the experience of the user, like how fast your application is, or how responsive it is. So it two of them is very important, brings of an application to have a successful application. They are very important. So let me show some UI in Android. So in here, I have a layout. I have two layouts in that application which I showed you before. One is movie item layout. So we have two kind of views. One is view and the other is view group. Views are like image view. In here, as I'm showing the image of a movie. Then we have views like material text view, the text view or button. And we have four text view, and the text you are using for the title and the count of the amount of how many users have voted that movie. So the most important parameters in here are just the ID for image view, because we need this ID to call during the using in Java or Kotlin class, and then it is width and height. Sometimes width can be wrap content or match parent. If it is wrap content, it means that it can only wrap its content. Like if the text is very long, it will be that much long. Or if you make it match parent, then it will take the whole place of the parent view in your mobile screen. So in here, we have only an image view and four text view in the movie item layout. Then we have an activity mean. It's another layout. So in this layout, we have three UI. I mean, three view. One is a content loading progress bar. It is used whenever we call an API. You have seen in many applications, just there is a loading. So this is that loading. And the other is a text view again. So we want to show some errors there. And this widget, this view is very important, called recycler view. It is one of the best views in Android. We use this to show a list to the user, and the important using an adapter-based use. It creates the UI and it creates the items dynamically. So in here we have the ID, which we call in our Kotlin classes. And there is only one thing is very important, this layout manager. So we have three layout manager. One is the grid layout manager, linear layout manager, and staggered layout manager. So what exactly they are, let me show you in picture. So if it is linear, it means that we are going to show a list like and your contacts or a list of movies. The other is great. You have seen in your gallery, right? We have image and we show the image. So if you use this layout, great, then you can show your items like this. And the other is staggered grid. In staggered grid, we use this whenever we have different size of pictures to show them in different places. So that's why I use. And now how exactly the circular view works. So I showed the view item, right? This we have one item. There are three important things. One is view holder, adapter, and data collection. So view holder is the UI, which I showed. There was an image for text view. And then the adapter. Whenever we say adapter, the first thing in our mind comes the adapter which we use for charging our phone, right? And also that adapter connects electricity kind of to our phone. So this adapter also does the same thing. In adapter, we give a list of our items. Then adapter takes that list, that array list, and it binds that list to view holders. So view holders, there is the UI part, which image and text view are there, and adapter binds data to view holder, and then we should give a list of movies. So let me show how we can create an adapter to have this application. Let's go to the adapter. It's movie adapter. It's a class by Kotlin, and it's a constructor. Inside the constructor, you are getting a list of movies, and you are extending the circular view adapter. There are three important functions. What is uncreate view holder, get item count, and one view holder. Uncreate view holder, we are inflating the movie item, which I showed in here. This one, we need to inflate this, and then the get item count returns the count of the movies, how many movies in our list we have. Based on that recycler view, an adapter will show the items in the UI. And on bind view holder, gonna bind all the items of movies to our UI. So here we have class view holder. In class view holder, I added this function. This function just take a movie item, one movie item from this list, movies list. Movies is a list in here. It takes one of this in here based on the position of your when you are scrolling. It binds our data of movie title. It is a data class to the item view is movie title. It is a text view. So in here, if you see, I've used Glide. Glide is a library which is used to load image to the image view. We gave it is path, and then it does in the background. Yeah, so that's it. That is the only the work of movie adapter. It takes a list of movies, and then it binds that movies item to the UI. So let's go to next. Okay, now we know what is the circular view, and we know the view holder, and also now we need a list item, right? I need a list of movies. So how we can get it? We have to call an API. We have to call the server. In our daily life, we have seen a lot of this kind of things. Whenever you open your Facebook and Instagram, you're expecting to come something comes, right? So what Facebook does it calls an API to its server, and server returns all the related things to your history. So you can see like that. So in here, we do the same thing by using retrofit library. It's a library which you can make an HTTP request to our web server, and web server returns an HTTP response. So in that we can populate that data to our UI. So what exactly retrofit is? Let me show you. You have to use retrofit. You have to add this library, retrofit library, and also you have to add this library in your build Gradle file. This library is called converter JSON. It converts the JSON file to our Pujo classes, which we use in Java, but in Kotlin we use data class. To convert the JSON file to data class, we use this library. This library and the retrofit library work together. So to use retrofit and JSON, we need to add two permission in manifest file. One is access network state, and the other is permission of internet. So these are very important. If you don't add this permission in your Android manifest file, then you cannot make any internet call. So that's it. So we know the retrofit calls the API, and it returns this response to server. So to do that, what we need to do? We need to prepare two data classes. What is movie, and the other is movie response. Here it is. I have a model. It is movie. It is a data class, which I have talked about it. It's a class. And here we have these attributes: poster path, release date, and title. So you can see the why we have two poster paths, what is in here and there is in here. It is related to the JSON file, which we receive from backend. And because it is in Cynic style, but Kotlin coding style is we have to follow camel case style. That's why we added this in camel case, and this visualizes the name of the JSON file. So let me show you what happens, what exactly happens when we call an API. So here is our base URL. This one is my base URL. This base URLs belong to the movie database org, that's free. And then we have endpoints. It is discover movie. And then we have to pass an API key in our query. Whenever we call this, we'll get something weird like this. And if you add this to JSON formatter, it returns something like this. If you know the JSON, it's an object, and we have the page. In here, we need this one. It's a result, an array of result. Inside that array of results, we have this movie details. I only choose 5 of them. There's release date, title, and word average. If you see in here, it is in Cynic case. That is why I've added that. So a server returns us something like this, and JSON library will convert all this to our data classes. Okay, now we created our movie data class and movie response. As I see, it's the result that is the list of movie. And then we need to prepare movie service class and retrofit builder. So why we need to do that? If you go in here, retrofit, it is an interface where we define our methods, like the RESTful API methods like get method, post method, and delete update. So we need only a get method in here. This function gets a query, and here we have to pass our API key, and in here it is our endpoint, discovery and movie. Then it will return a call object. This call object belongs to the retrofit library which I showed you, and it should return for us what? Movie response. Movie response contains a list of movies which I showed you in JSON file too. Okay, so yeah, we have this movie service. Then we have to initialize our retrofit library, retrofit, because retrofit does for us to use for calling the API. So in here, two important things during creating a retrofit object. One is base URL. Here's the base URL, and the address add converter factory. As I said, we use JSON library to convert the JSON file, which I showed you, to our model classes. These are the model class, so that we can show to the UI. These are two important things. And then we have this method which return as the movie service interface. Okay. Okay, now we prepare interface for API calls. We prepared that, the movie service, and also we initialize it to retrofit. Now, the main thing in here is just now we have to call the main activity to API, call the API. We initialized our retrofit, and also we created service classes. Now we have to make an actual API call. So let's go to the main activity. So what actual activity is? Activity is kind of a door to open inside activity, inside the application, inside your application. So it's a class, and it extends up component activity. In Kotlin, one more thing is there. In Kotlin, we don't have any static value. Like in class in Java, we use static keyword. Whenever if you want to access an item of an class without creating its object, right? So if you want to do something similar to that, you have to add all those items inside this companion object block. And then whenever the app opens, this method will be called, this onCreate. So we set content view, our main method, and then we call fetch movies. So in here, the actual API calls happen. So we have some checking is here, networking helper. You can go by that because we don't have a lot of time right now. You can check in here, it is. So it's a function which returns if your phone is connected to internet or not. And then we get from retrofit builder our servers, and then we call this movie get movies and pass our API key. So everyone should have an API key. In description of this project in GitHub, I have described how you can get your own API key. So we have this call. It returns this function which I showed in here in interface, returns a call object of retrofit. So that we enqueue in here. So so we call the enqueue method. What it does in enqueue method is it calls the server in the background. So the server will send the response. It can be failed or it can be successful. If it is successful, we check. If it is successful and this one body is not null, then we show our movies. This is a function which we pass the result of that our API call. That's it. It's very simple only. And this function. So we have a list of movies. There is only this one is important. So in the circular view adapter, we create an item, an object of movie adapter, which I explained. A movie adapter is adapter which we pass a list of movies, then it takes that list and it's gonna populate to the UI. This is important. And the other is like this one is all. It's not. These are optional. We add this default animator does to have some animation, and we add this only for setting the improvement performance. We see to the recycler view that our item has a fixed size, and here we are making the visible. So there are some other functions which show error message, hide progress bar, show progress bar. You can go by that. So now let's run our application. So it's my emulator. Yeah, that's it. So let's see what happens. So now building the project. If you have built any project and using UI, using emulator, then you know how much time it takes. So until our project is built, then I will share you how you can learn Kotlin. I am going to share you one useful resources. And also I have shared many resources link to the, maybe you can find from the description of the video or in the comments. So there's one website called Udacity. This very Udacity in here. So this Udacity has an incredible partnership with Google. They have created very awesome courses for Android, all the technologies of Google, Android, TensorFlow, Web, here, and all of them are just free. All these courses are created by Google developers, like Kotlin Bootcamp for programmers, developing Android apps with Kotlin, and advanced Android apps with Kotlin. There are a lot of courses. They are just amazing. Even there are like applications for building Flutter. Just visit this website and learn from here. Yeah, okay, let's see what happened to this. Yeah, now here's our application and it's finally dead. So in here, as I showed, is the item, image view and for text view, and recycler view. We're giving the list of movies to adapter. An adapter is dynamically showing those movies in here. So just clone the project, go to the code base and explore by yourself. If you have any question or doubt, you can direct message me on any social medias and let me know. So yeah, mission accomplished. I hope you guys enjoyed and thank you so much for your attention.
تشکرم جاوید جان از پرزنتیشنت. was great.
تشکر
خیلی لذت بردیم، خیلی چیزا یاد گرفتیم. امیدوارم که همگی همچنان از پرزنتیشن تو هم آموخته باشن و لذت بردن. یک جان سپاس.
تشکر، زنده باشین. شب خوشی داشته باشین.
روز خوش. فعلا
خداحافظ.
اسپیکر بعدی ما خانم جلالزایی هستن که سینیر ایگوارنس اند ریسک کامیونیکیشن ادوایزرم در وزارت صحت. خانم جلالزایی خیلی خوش آمده. صدا شما نداریم.
سلام علیکم. شما خوب هستین؟ تشکر بسیار.
خیلی خوش آمدیم. خیلی خوشحالیم که شما رو امروز داریم و همه ما خیلی اکسایتید هم هستیم که بشنویم از شما.
انشالله. خوب است، ما اسکرین شیر میکنم و شروع میکنم با پرزنتیشن. تشکر بسیار زیاد.
تشکر شما.
ببخشید ما فقط میخوایم اسکرین شیر بسازم. شما فایل میبینید فوزیه جان؟ اسکرین ما شیر شد؟ بله.
میشنویم؟
صدای مرا دارین؟ Hello everyone. Hello everyone. بله.
صدا شما رو داریم، فقط فول اسکرین کنیم. پرزنتیشن شما رو میبینیم.
خب است. Hello everyone, my name is Darghuna Jalalzai. I am Senior Advisor to Minister of Public Health in E-Governance and Risk Communication. But my subject and topic will be different, but all the technology needs the data. So why here the subject of 5G will be very important. As I also worked with 30 years with the telecom sector and for 5 years with the Afghanistan Telecom Regulatory Authority. From 3 months, I am working with the Ministry of Public Health. So my presentation is most of related to the telecom sector, and this is about the 5G. The table of content is include of 5G introduction, 5G from a customer and business perspective, 5G use cases for developing countries, enhanced mobile broadband, ultra reliable and low latency communication, massive machine type communication, rollout plan for developing countries, 5G rollout plan, 5G challenges, and conclusion. 5G introduction. The transition to new fifth generation network is called 5G. When the demand for consumer increase for high data rate and good network and good data rate and fast data rate, so here the subject of 5G came So one of the main objectives of fifth generation mobile communication system is 5G and IMT 2020 to increase the current data rate up to several gigabit per second, with even more than 10 gigabit per second. So already we had 4G in Afghanistan. Before 4G, we had the 3G and the 2G. So this is the generation of mobile communication. When the demand for high data rate increased, the mobile generation is also changed day by day. So one possibility is to consider the use of higher frequency in order to increase the available bandwidth, which is necessary to achieve such data rate. 5G from customer and business perspective. Customer always need the high speed and low latency and low price. For the operator or telecom operator, the ARPU is increased. It means that their revenue will be increased with implementation of the new generation of mobile telecommunication. And the lower production cost of data or cost per bit enhance brand image. And for the country, that is transformation to the new generation or new transformation of the economy. Like there will be GDP contribution increase in the mobile sector, and the employment will be increased. 5G use cases for developing countries. We have three different areas for this one. One is enhanced mobile broadband. The second is ultra reliable low latency communication. The third is massive machine type communication. For enhanced mobile broadband, it requires higher bandwidth. In some cases, ultra high reliability. For ultra reliable low latency communication, demand, reliability, and millisecond latency, and not necessary high bandwidth. In the third part, the massive machine type communication, there will be concerned with the connected millions or billions of low power sensor with low data rate. In the next slide, I will give more details about this three areas. Enhanced mobile broadband. In the real-time interaction, meeting, seminar, anywhere and anytime will be possible. Translation in the speaking in the real time will be possible with the 5G. Virtual assistant or virtual staff. Streaming of 30-60-degree videos and HD videos downloaded as a matter of seconds. And hologram and holographic calls will be possible. Personalized shopping like virtual reality and augmented reality technology will be very fast. Playing virtual reality and augmented reality games, supporting heavy, large-scale and real-time response for online interactive gaming. In the second area, ultra reliable and low latency communication. That will be like more safety, efficiency, enhancement of traffic congestion control through intelligent transport system. Remote surgery will be happened. But cellular RAN communication, real-time command and control, remote health checkup and medical consultancy, and remote control of mechatronic equipment in remote and relatively inaccessible area. It supports a large-scale real-time response for interactive gaming. Real-time translation will be happen for the different languages. support large-scale and real-time response for interactive gaming. In this, I can give you one example. In these days, we also launched one telemedicine projects to connect Afghanistan Jamhuriyat Hospital to Samangan and to Paktika, that all the communication and treatment will be online through the system. Massive machine type communication. Again, smartphone, smart building, as now in the developed countries, smart building and smart home are very important, and it is growing very fast. Smart metering and grid management, location tracking of children, pets, and sensor, health condition, automatic monitoring, and smart logistics. Rollout plan for developing countries. Sometimes there is problem for some country like Afghanistan because we are developing countries to implement 5G. And we will have some problem like financial wise and other security wise. So for developing countries, it is more different than developed countries, as a majority of developing countries are shortage of financial resource, as before I mentioned, and there will be like more problem of security, and sometimes people are not agree, or there will be another problem of taxation for the government taxation. But otherwise, it will be create more job for the people. 5G rollout plan. If you want to build a rollout plan for 5G, we must take care of this 5 stage. First, we should have the regulatory framework. If we do not have the regulatory framework, it will not be possible to go ahead and to implement 5G. Then spectrum accessibility. Sometimes we do not have the spectrum. If it is internationally announced that which spectrum is used for 5G, it will be great to use it in Afghanistan, and sometimes do spectrum, especially in Afghanistan, as I work with the regulatory, use for other things like they use it for digital TV and for 4G, or so those spectrum should be free and give it to the 5G telecom operators. The third important point is fiber backhaul. Fiber backhaul is very important if you want to have a reliable network and you want to have high speed, high data rates. So for 5G, the fiber is very important. So number 4 is places to start. If we want to start, it is better to start from the cities, main cities, and then go to the provinces, because at least the operators can achieve some revenues. The people of this main cities are more than the remote area, and then they can start it and enhance it 5G to the remote area. Device availability. Device is also very important for 5G because the current devices will not manage the 5G. So we hope to have, with the less price, good device for 5G. Support. That is again the information which I before explained, the regulatory framework. Streamline regulatory condition to facilitate 5G deployment. Provide regulatory flexibility for innovative 5G propositions. Adjustment in legacy regulatory framework where needed and or related to 5G. taxation fairness need to be taken into consideration for 5G as an exception. In the beginning, if they gave them the permission to implement 5G without the taxation, after when they achieve the revenue, the government can add the tax for the 5G. That we can pave the way for the telecom sector and to implement the 5G. Overhaul of regulatory, government, and other local authority policy procedure to boost the rollout of 5G. Operator access to proper spectrum. As before I mentioned, the spectrum subject is very important for 5G, especially for dense, urban, and remote area. Allocation of global harmonized spectrum for 5G to reduce interference across the border and facilitate international roaming, reduction of equipment costs. Going to the action for 5G spectrum, but still unfortunately in Afghanistan, one problem with the telecom regulatory, they still do not have action for 4G spectrum. Allocation of proper bandwidth for each band. Price to be taken into account. Encourage operator for spectrum sharing. Fiber backhaul. The high capacity for fast speed and for low latency. The 5G required backhaul network. Fiber often considered the most suitable type of backhaul for mobile operators because it will have the high capacity, high reliability, and ability to support high capacity traffic. And 5G backhaul is a must in the area wherever is planned to launching the 5G services. Place to take startup. As before I mentioned in this step, the 5G deployment focus on density, populated urban centers and cities. Because the MNO also have the cost, MNOs, mobile network operators, also have the cost for the 5G. But in the beginning, if they have launched it in the cities, they will achieve their revenue and they can extend in the remote area. Device availability. Device is very important. If a device do not support the 5G, it will be challengeable because for the 5G smartphone models are cost more than the advanced 4G devices because it will be support the advanced video capabilities to 4K and 8K displays, as well as additional cameras, sensor to support the AR and VR application. And hence it will be also need to support multiple spectrum band as 4G, 5G in the same form factor. The issue of 5G device cost is of particular relevance to a lower income market such as Afghanistan. 5G challenges for developing countries. This is challenges for 5G rollout. One is regulatory and another is non-regulatory. As before also we explained about the regulatory challenges, device availability, spectrum reforming, licensing, pricing, and taxation. And non-regulatory challenges are security problem, especially in Afghanistan, small cell deployment for business and investment. In the conclusion, The fifth generation is a new technology and needed to be launched in developing countries. This my suggestion is also before when I was in the regulatory authority, I had decision to implement on time the 5G as other country also newly start this one. But unfortunately, on move to another sector, so now I am not involved more for the implementation. The applicable use cases of 5G varies for each country, but definitely for enhanced mobile broadband is the mostly needed use cases of 5G developing countries. Regulatory framework spectrum, accessibility, taxation, fiber backhaul, places to start and device availability are the issue to be taken into consideration for 5G rollout in developing countries. In addition to above mentioned issue, security is also one of the topmost and important topics to be taken into consideration for 5G rollout in Afghanistan. Small cell deployment and investment are two more challenges for 5G rollout in Afghanistan, which is out of regulatory scope. But we hope that one day we launch the 5G in Afghanistan and we implement the 5G in Afghanistan and to use and to have the high data rate and we can use the machine type communication. We can use it for IoTs, for artificial intelligence. All these technology need the high data rate. Thank you very much. If you have any question, I am ready to answer.
خیلی ممنون بانو جلالزاده از تاک که داشتین در برنامه DevFest.
تشکر. سلامت باشین. Thank you very much. Have a good night. تشکر بسیار زیاد.
شب خوش. خداحافظ.
شب شما خوش. خداحافظ.
نیاز محمد خیری هستم، ارگانایزر GDG بلخ. فعلا نوبت به آخرین چالش ما رسیده که من کد بر اشتراک میگذارم و کسایی که آنلاین هستن میتونن که جوابای خود ارائه کنن. کد را که اسکرین میبینین شما آوتپوتش را در کامنت نوشته کنید و ببینیم که اولین بار جواب درسته کی ارائه میکنه. خیلی خوب. اسیب افغان شما برنده از این چالش شدن به خاطر از اینکه جواب درسته برای اولین بار شما ارائه نمودید. خب
سلام علیکم فردا.
به خاطر علیکم سلام، خوب هستید؟ و به خاطر توفیقی که به شما به نظر گرفتیم امروز به تماس میشیم و براتون میرسیم.
ضرورت معرفی باشه. من یکی از ارگانایزرهای GDG بلخ هستم. تشکر از فرزاد جان که چالش کردن، راهنمایی کردن. دیگه من فعلا از پوپل عبدالرحمن پوپل دعوت میکنم که بیاین لیسانه. عبدالرحمن سلام عبدالرحمن. فکر کنم مایک دافع ثبت رحم.
سلام، تشکر شریف جان.
خوب هستی؟ صحت سلامت؟ خوش آمدی به برنامه.
بله.
انشاءالله که سر حال باشی. عزیزای دل، عبدالرحمن درباره فلاتر امرویتان حرف میزنه. از حرفای عبدالرحمن یکان تا که لذت ببرین و پوینت های مثبت حتما پیشتر میکنین. عبدالرحمن خودت میتونی خواهش میکنم.
Thank you. سلام همگیتان، عبدالرحمن هستم. ما سکرین خود شیر میکنم. خب امروز موضوع ما درباره فلاتر استیت منیجمنت است و ما عبدالرحمن بوپل، موبایل اپلیکیشن دیولپر در سرویس و کوارگانایزر در GDG کابل هستم. خب امروز ما درباره چند چیزا گپ میزنم. اول چرا استیت منیجمنت، دوم استیت منیجمنت چند دیمو اپلیکیشن براتون نشان میدم و بعد از او how to learn flutter state management، چه قسم میتونیم flutter state management را یاد بگیریم. خب برای اینا که در فلاتر نوسته برایشان سوال میشه که فلاتر چیست. توسط فلاتر ما میتونیم که مقبول، فاست بیس و اوپن یا اوپن سورس یا فری و پرودکتیو اپلیکیشن ها بسازیم. فلاتر یک موبایل اپلیکیشن تولکیت یا فریمورک هستند توسط کدام که ما میتونیم که کراس پلتفرم اپلیکیشن ها بسازیم. یکی از مشکل کلان زیاد کمپانی ها می بود که یک اپلیکیشن برای دو پلتفرم میساخت. یک بار کد میکرد توسط جاوا یا کاتلین برای اندروید و برای اندروید و بعد از توسط ابجکتیو سی کد میکرد برای آی او اس. باز امی کد دو جای نوشته کردن و از یک جای به دیگه جای بردن و دو تیم داشتن برای یک کد بیس یک اپلیکیشن یک جنجال بسیار کلان بود. فلاتر امی مشکل بسیار با آسانی حل میکنه. توسط فلاتر ما شما یک بار کد میکنیم و اما کد میشه که در اندروید و آی او اس ران شود. در چند وقتای پیش آل فلاتر در وب در بیتا ورژن است کار میته و در تستینگ است و فلاتر این سال برای ویندوز هم در تستینگ ورژن آمد که یک اپلیکیشنی که توسط فلاتر ساخته شد که در بغل ای که در اندروید و آی او اس کار میته هم در ویندوز و وب کار میته. شب نو در فلاتر څنګه موږ زده کوو. په اوله ورځ یو کاونټر اپلیکیشن جوړو. د دې نه وروسته چې فلاتر خپل په کمپیوټر کې سیټ اپ کوو، اولنی اپلیکیشن چې اتومات جوړیږي یو کاونټر اپلیکیشن دی چې یو دوه ډیریږي او بیا بیرته کمیږي. نو دا اپلیکیشن دپاره موږ ته هېڅ ضرورت نشته چې کوم کوډ ولیکو یا چې وکړو، دا اتومات په خپله کېږي. په دومه ورځ موږ راځو د فلاتر د لیاوټ جوړو چې څنګه یو را کالم جوړ کو یا یو کالم جوړ کو، څنګه یو عکس وشي. تقریبا په یو هفته کې د فلاتر لیاوټ موږ صحیح جوړولی شو. د دې نه وروسته په اومه، اتمه تر 15مه ورځې پورې موږ دې کولی شو د فلاتر ټول یو آی څنګه یو ښایسته یو آی په فلاتر باندې جوړ کړي، څنګه یو فلیکسیبل انیمیشن او همداسې نور اپلیکیشن په فلاتر باندې جوړ کړي. په فلاتر باندې یو اپلیکیشن یو آی ډېر ساده او ډېر اسانه جوړیږي، تر دې پورې چې فلاتر یو یو آی ډرګ اینډ ډراپ هم نه لري. د دې نه بغیر هم د فلاتر یو یو آی اپلیکیشن ډېر په ساده سره تر 15 ورځو پورې موږ زده کولی شو. په 14مه ورځ موږ یو نظر شاید ولرو چې اپلیکیشن جوړ کړو چې موسم ورته وښیي چې موسم څه شی دی، څومره سانتیګریډ دی او څنګه اوسنی د کوم وخت موسم دی. د دې اپلیکیشن لپاره موږ ته ضرورت دی چې یو لوډر ولرو، یو ډیټا د نیټورک څخه واخلو بیا په اپلیکیشن کې وښیو، او همدغسې که انټرنیټ نه بیا یو ایرور وښیو. یا یو بل مثال په والله سم ورځ باندې موږ کوشش وکړو چې اپلیکیشن جوړ کړو چې د موبایل ټیم چینج کړي څنګه چې تور بلیک ټیم او لایټ ټیم یا ډارک ټیم اینڈ لایټ ټیم په ټولو اپلیکیشنونو کې ډېر عام شوی دی نو د یو بټن یې جوړ کړو چې پر هغه باندې کلیک وکړو چې ټول اپلیکیشن د سره دوباره ریبلډ شي او د اپلیکیشن ټیم وا لایټ یا ډارک ته چینج شي د دې اپلیکیشن د جوړولو لپاره دا موږ ته یو څه نوی کاري دا په فلټر باندې موږ څنګه کوو One way to do it is to have a material application. A material app is the topper widget in every Flutter app that cover all our application. The other widget will be our home screen, which you guys see over here. This all screen is the home screen of our application. The third will be scaffold. The scaffold is where we show the other objects like the up bar, which shows over here the body, the all body of our application, the bottom up bar, which have increment and decrement button, and the theme changer, which is over here. So now what we want is whenever the theme changer button pressed, this whole application shall rebuild. So how can we do it? One way is to create a stateful widget and pass our state from material up to home screen, then from home screen to scaffold, and then from scaffold to a floating action button, and then we pass this state to theme changer. So whenever we click on theme changer will go and rebuild the whole application from material up to home screen to scaffold, and this all screen will be rebuilt automatically. So if we think about like material like a family, like a grandfather, and the home screen is another grandmama, and the scaffold is the whole family or the home of this place. So whenever we call from theme changer to material app, we can't call it directly without anything. We need to pass the change from one widget to another widget, from another to another, and then we finally come to theme changer, which is over here. So passing the object passing the object from one to another is a little bit harder or a little bit different, like passing a widget from this, passing a state from this widget until this. So what we can do another way is to strictly communicate from theme changer with material app. To do it, one of the way is state management. With state management, we can talk with a child widget. Material app have a child of theme changer, and these all other child. A child widget can rebuild their parent widget, or every time a parent widget can rebuild the whole screen or a specific screen. So the widget communication is a little bit different and a little bit tricky in Flutter, but building UI in first place is very easy and very faster, and we can do it very quickly. So most of the time, even me myself, we go on and do a Google about Flutter based state management. So we want to use the first thing and best thing and learn it once, as we learn Flutter very faster, but it not works like that. When we search what's the best state management for Flutter, we get different type of question, different type of answer. The first answer maybe provider, which it's very popular and Google also recommended. It's okay, but it's actually not a state management. It's a dependency injection. Then mostly people talk about the blog, or the business logic, that it's one of the best state management. And even some people talk about the GetX, like they say that GetX is one of the very popular and one of the most used state management. And even some people recommend inherited widget, and some talk about Redux and Mobax. So ami hamagi aga providers, blockers, GetX, Redux یا Mobax hamagi state management است که ما شما میتونیم استفادهش کنیم. مگر از امی state management کدامش انتخاب کنیم و کدامش بهتر است، امی در فکر همگی ما شماست. در این سلاید برای اینکه جواب بدیم که کدامی از اینا best state management است، چند counter application در دوران امی presentation ما می سازم. اول یک counter application توسط stateful widget می سازم که یک بتن ما شما پرس میکنیم value را increment و decrement میکنیم و باز توسط provider with notifier. provider خودش یک dependency injection است with notifier وقتی که provider همراه notifier یک جای شوه میتونه که widget را rebuild کنه و این یکی از recommend توسط گوگل است و زیاد نفرها امیر استفاده کرده است و کار میتونه. و در قدم سوم توسط فلاتر بلاک. توسط فلاتر بلاک یک اپلیکیشن از سر میسازیم که چه قسم توسط فلاتر بلاک یک کانتر اپلیکیشن کار میتن. خب stateful widgets. Stateful widgets are built inside Flutter. It comes with Flutter. As we first of all create our first hello world application, we get a stateful application with a counter, and it really works very well. We have a counter page. A counter page will be extended from a stateful widget, and this stateful widget will have create a state of counter page state. Then counter page state will be another widget, which will have an integer of counter, and then every time we call the method of set state, it will rebuild the whole application. The whole like the whole build method will be called. One of the pros of stateful widget is that it's very easy and it can be implemented within a small widget, within a small widget of our application, and it's great, but it's not good for very big application because every time you call set state, it creates the whole app from start to end. Let's have a look at the code, how the stateful code will be written. So here we have code of our stateful application. So we have stateful counter. The stateful counter has a counter button. First of all, it is a stateful widget. It's extended from a stateful widget. Whenever we build it, it creates a state of counter page, and we have an integer of counter. And here we have the stateful widget. Whenever we call on increment, it increments a value. So let's see, does it works? So here is an application that contains all type of Flutter state management tools. I'll share the link of codes in the comment section below. So I see the stateful widget. Here is the stateful counter. Here is our stateful counter, which is right at over here. So whenever I press plus key, increment key, it increments a value from here. Whenever we call set state, it creates the whole widget from start to end. And whenever we decrement it decrement a value just like that. What's the best thing about the stateful widgets are it's very easy because we just create two classes and just call set state increment or set state decrement. But the cons or the cons of or the negative part of stateful widgets are that they are not publicly available. Like in a big application, we can't access the material like the material app. We cannot rebuild this application from here from a button. So we can even Google is using a stateful widget for their small part or small widgets, not for really big widget. So my recommendation is that stateful widgets are great, but stateful widget are only great for a small part or for a small application. So yeah, stateful widget is a very good option for a small application. Here's another way of state managing state. It's provider with notifier. So how it works? First of all, we create a class of counter and then have a value of count. The good thing about provider is that it's very basic and very easy to understand. We have only a class counter with change notifier. Whenever we call increment, we say notify listener. The notify listener rebuild our widgets. So then we have then we wrap our material up with multi-provider. The multi-provider provide the counter block to the home page. And then in our home page, whenever we want to show the counter text, we call context.watch counter.count. And whenever we want to increment it, we call counter context.read counter and then increment it. So it really works, and it really works very great. Let's have a look at the project example of this. I will leave the code link in the section in the comment section below. So I have a repository by the name of state management counters and GitHub, and you guys can view it. So first of all, we create a counter class, and it extends from change notifier, and we have a count. Whenever we call increment, we increment the value and then notify the changes. So هر وقتی که ما از امی کلاس notify listener میگم، امی اتومات همگی ویجت را ریبیلد میکنه اصلا. و بعد از او امی کانتر ویجت به material app راب میکنم در multi provider و در multi provider change notifier counter را پاس میکنم. و در قدم سیوم ما میام context.watch counter.count که count بری ما نشان میدم. و وقتی که من میخوام increment کنم context.read was counter in incremented. So let's have a look at its example. Here is another example: provider and notifier, and then whenever we increment it and increment the value, and whenever we decrement and decrement the value. So yeah, provider هم بسیار خوب است، بسیار عالی است. مگر provider با یک اپلیکیشن متوسط خوب است یا با اپلیکیشن بسیار کلان نه، یک اپلیکیشنی که چند استیت داشته باشم. از خاطری که پرووایدر همگی ریبیلد همگی ویجت را ریبیلد میکنه، خود امی بیلد میتود باز کال میکنه، مگر از ستیتفول ویجت کرده بازم بهتر است، از خاطری که میتونه که متریال اپم ریبیلد کنه، از خاطری که یک مولتی پرووایدر داره و مولتی پرووایدر هر ویجت ریبیلد کرده میتونه. رای سوم فلاتر بلاک. فلاتر بلاک یکی از بسیار مشهورترین کانتکست لیبراری یا استیت منیجمنت لیبراری فلاتر است. سو برای فلاتر بلاک ما شما اول یک کلاس میسازیم با نام کانتر ایونت که همگی ایونت های کانتر همینجا میمانیم و بعد از او یک کلاس دیگه میسازیم که دایی یک کانتر استیت میمانیم. امی کانتر بلاک است که توسط امی ایونت ها پیش میرم، یک کلاس برای ایونت و دیگر کلاس برای کانتر بلاک. و هر وقت که ما شما در امی مپ اون ایونت استیت یک ایونت پاس کنیم و باز ایونت میبینیم، اگر ایونت اینکریمنت بود یک ییلد یک استیت ویلیو دیکریمنت میکنیم و اگر اینکریمنت بود یک ویلیو اینکریمنت میکنیم. و بعد از او ماتریال اپی خود در مولتی بلاک پرووایدر راب میکنم و بعد از او توسط بلدر بلاک بلدر امی را باز ریبیلد میکنم. یکی از خوبی بلاک بلدر امی است که بلاک بلدر صرف امی یک ویجت ریبیلد میکنه، همگی ویجت را ریبیلد نمیکنم. و در قدم سوم هر وقت که بخوام یک ویلیو را اینکریمنت کنم counter context.block باز counter block dot add counter increment counter event dot increment کال میکنم. خب بیایم که کد اگزمپل امی را ببینیم. خب اینجا ما دارم counter block counter. The block counter یک counter event دارم. The counter event increment و decrement پاس میکنم. And then I map the event state whenever I get the event. If event was if event was decrement, I yield the decrement value, and if event was increment, then I increment the value. And after that, I wrap my block up, my material up with block provider. So here I provide two things to the counter page. First of all, I provide the counter block, and then I provide the team log. So here we will not talk about the team log. I'll just provide the counter block, and then we will provide the counter block to the counter page. So after that, whenever we encounter page, we bring some changes. For example, if we click on the increment button, we call the context.block counter block and then increment a value. And if we click on decrement, we call the we add an event counter event of decrement. So this automatically build only one place of our application. It only build the counter text. We have a block builder. Block builder is another widget which only build a specific part of our application, not the whole app. And it's one of the biggest feature or the best part of about our app. So yeah, let me wrap my app inside a material app, because if you not have a material app, the app will crash. Material app, and then we will have a home. So yeah, here is my block in Qubit. So whenever I click on increment, it increment a value, and whenever I click on decrement, it decrement a value. No, که موږ غواړو په خپل اپلیکیشن کې یو بل بټن ولرو، کله چې پر هغه بټن کلیک وکړو د ټول اپلیکیشن رنګ بلیک تیم یا لایټ تیم ته بدل شي. څنګه دا کولای شو؟ د دې لپاره چې د اپلیکیشن لپاره یو په اپلیکیشن کې یو بټن ولرو چې بلیک تیم یا لایټ تیم ته بدل کړو، راځو د فلټر کیوبیټ څخه استفاده کوو. فلټر په اخره کې د بلاک پرسنګ کیوبیټ هم جوړ کړی دی، چې د کیوبیټ یو اسانه طریقه ده چې موږ کولی شو د واسطه فلټر بلاک ایونټس جوړ کړو. So here is my theme, the light theme and the dark theme. The light theme has their lightness, like I call it theme data and pulse brightness of light, and the dark theme has the brightness of dark. But I don't have any button over there to interact with. So then I have a function, the function called the emit. Emit is just like set state. It reveals only the widgets that depends on the theme qubit. So it revealed when the state brightness was dark, I change it to light theme, and if was light, I change it to dark theme. So it actually toggle or change theme from dark to light, from light to dark. So let's do a little bit coding stuff. Let me create a floating action button. Floating action button, and then pass it in icon. The icon will be icons dot brightness. I'll need to pass it a child, and the child will be an icon. And then we will have on pressed. Whenever the button is pressed, what shall it happen? So here is our button. Let's see. Yeah. So this is one of the best feature of Flutter. Whenever we change the code, the changes are come over here. So I'm saying that whenever I click on this theme changer button, the whole application should be rebuilt with the new theme. So where is my theme? My theme is actually stored inside the theme qubit. The block qubit is very easy way of implementing these things. So I call the block provider to provide this block to the whole widget tree, so the whole widget tree can use it. I create from that context the theme qubit. Yeah, and then I wrote the material up with another widget called block builder. The block builder will take two things. First of all, it will take a theme qubit and then it will take team data, which is our response. The first will use our team qubit or whatever we have over here, and the second is team data over here. So then we have the builder over here. The builder take get to think first of all the context and then the team. Yeah. This is how it works. So let me change something. Give some commas to it to refactor it a little bit beautifully. So yeah, here it is. So now whenever I change the theme, it will rebuild the whole widget. So where shall I pass this theme? I want to pass this theme to the theme of app. So now this theme will pass to the material app. And whenever we refresh our app, it will rebuild the whole widget and show the new theme. But yet I didn't call the theme qubit. Let me call the theme qubit. So here I'll call context dot block of type theme qubit. And then call toggle theme. The toggle theme is actually the method that we use or that we write it over here. So whenever I call the toggle theme, it will refresh our theme. So let's click it. So yeah, it really worked. Does it increment? Yeah, it do increment too. So when you click it again, it toggle theme to light dark. How it works? First of all, we call it over here the theme lock qubit theme dot toggle theme. The toggle theme rebuild. What it rebuild is the whole material up. Material up is wrapped with block builder. The block builder actually build only specific part. It's just like the build method, but it build a specific widget rather than the whole application. So Flutter qubit is a very easy way of writing Flutter logs. But here's one more thing that you all maybe want to know about. So Riverpod. Riverpod is written by Rami. Rami is the person who wrote provider. So he is rewriting the provider and naming it Riverpod. Riverpod is provider but with different feature and different values. Riverpod works very easily. It doesn't need context. It's totally awesome, but it's still in testing and it's still not stable to use it. And how an application a counter up with the Riverpod will look? We'll have a counter provider. We'll have a state provider. Within one line of code, we will write our state over here or our provider over here. And then whenever we want to watch the value, watch the counter provider and its state, the state will be the count and it will store over here. Then we can show letter over here. And then whenever we want to increment, we call context.read that counter provider and then state.increment. It will rebuild only that specific widget. So counter provider really works, Riverpod really works, and it's great. It's still in testing. Like last day I was working with it, the Flutter state hot reload not work with it, and there are still some limitation in it. As it grows, as it finish, I think it will be the future of Flutter state management. And yeah, our whole counter example will looks like that. So how to learn, like the block library is still one of the best choice for everyone to create a small app and make it and grow it very bigger and bigger. Block library is best for every type of applications. And if you want to see the code of the current counters that I've just built, you can have a look at state management counters from I'm Pobal at GitHub. I have pushed all the codes of counters to my GitHub repository. No, څنګه Flutter څنګه state management زده کو دا state management زده کولو لپاره اول کولای شئ چې how to learn Flutter زما یو مقاله ده چې ما په میډیم کې لیکلې ده تقریبا مخکې ورځ مې کتله تر 4,000 زیات لایک یې خوړلې دي او تقریبا 8,000 9,000 خلکو هغه مقاله ویلې ده او ګټه ترې ځینې اخیستې ده او کومک یې ورسره کړی دی. نو که غواړئ فلټر د ابتدا څخه زده کړئ هاو ټو لرن فلټر به ستاسو دپاره تر ټولو یو ښه مقاله وي چې لینک یې ستاسو سره په کومنټ کې هم شته. بل state management counters code ټول په impopal /state management counter کې دي او state management flutter state management flutter یو state management نه لري په اصل کې flutter ډیر زیات state management نه لري. که غواړئ flutter state management زده کړئ نو کولای شئ چې خپل د flutter سایت ته ورسئ هلته مختلف state managementونه وګورئ شروع کړئ د اسانه څخه کرار مخکې ولاړ شئ. او بل فلټر بلاک د فلټر بلاک لپاره بلاک library .dev چې خپل یو ویب سایټ لري هلته ټول ساده مثالونه او هر څه شته دغه ځینې دوی په ډېر اسانه سره فلټر بلاک زده کولی شي. So what's the best state management again? That will be a question again that after explaining a Flutter provider and stateful widget and block and then coming a new thing called Rive or pod. So what's the best one again? So what works best and what's the best one? So to answer this question, actually there is no best or worst. Everyone is best, everyone is good on their own place. So there are if the state management that I just talk about, first of all the stateful widget are good for small project or for local state. From local state, I mean a widget that control his own. Like for example, animating a widget, it will be good for things like this. But providers are good for small and medium projects, and Flutter Block are best for small, medium, and even the largest project. Even the largest project like Google is working on, all are using Flutter Block because Flutter Block manages every state, every part of the app. I have recently created an application named Arya University Attendance, which is totally built with Flutter Block. Flutter Block is implemented over here, and it works perfectly fine. And from my own experience, I will totally recommend Flutter Block. But first of all, you guys should go with first of all stateful widget, then provider, and then Flutter Block. And maybe who knows, the future will be brighter, and there will be an easy way than Flutter Block too. So how to learn state management again? So باید ضرورت نیست که روزی 15 یا روزی 16 یا روزی 20 سر فلاتر استیت منیجمنت کار شروع کنین. میتونین که از inherited widget شروع کنین روزی 30 یا یک مواد و بعد از او فلاتر پرووایدر یاد بگیرین و در قدم 30 فلاتر بلاک یاد بگیرین. اگر یک بار طرف جاینت کلاین 30 که فلاتر بلاک است برین که او بسیار سخت میشه برایتان، از خاطری که کانسپت های بسیار جدید است. یک قسم کانسپت نیست مثل دی جاوا، کاتلین یا دیگرها که است. یک ویجت دیگه ویجت مثل ماجیکلی بیلد میکنه فهمیدن میشن و زیاد نفرا امی وقت میاد که فلاتر رو کویک میکنه که نمیفهمه که چه قسم از امی یک اپلیکیشن کلان استیت منیج کنه. خب رای خوب ترامی است که از inherited widget شروع کنین، از خاطری که provider خودش یک inherited widget است. inherited widget built in در هر فلاتر اپلیکیشن است و provider یک advanced library یا خودترین inherited widget است و فلاتر بلاک یک library بسیار کلان است که یک library fully functional برای state management است که او خودش هم provider برای dependency injection هم استفاده میکنه. provider هم در فلاتر بلاک است. فلاتر بلاک یک perfectly یک total package برای state management یک اپلیکیشن کلان شده میتونه و شما هم میتونین استفاده کنین و ما خودم فلاتر بلاک استفاده میکنیم. خب بعد از چی کنیم میتونین که یک فلاتر ویدر اپلیکیشن بسازین. از خاطری که در یک ویدر اپلیکیشن زیاد steps هست. اول ما شما یک نتورک ریکوست میکنیم به API، شاید API آف باشه، شاید API ریسپانس نده، شاید در سرور سایت کدام مشکل باشه. او وقت چی کنیم؟ با state management ما شما کمک میکنه based on different state. اگر در وقتی لودینگ بود لودر نشان بده، وقتی که ریزلت آمد برای ما شما ریزالت نشان بده. اگر اینترنت نداشت یک ایرور نشان بده که اینترنت ندارین. اگر سرور ایرور داشت با ضرور سرور نشان بده. اگر ما شما هر چقدر کد خوب نوشته کنیم بازم نمیفهمم که در سرور کدام مشکل میاد و سر ما نمیباشه. باز برای ایرور هندلینگ هم استیت منیجمنت بسیار خوب است. استیت منیجمنت توسط استیت منیجمنت هر ایرور را جداگانه منیج کرده میتونن. و کانتر اپلیکیشن اولین اپلیکیشن میتونن که شما سرشان کار کنین، از خاطر که کانتر اپلیکیشن ها بسیار ساده است. میتونین هر استیت منیجمنت اول در کانتر اپلیکیشن چک کنین، باز برین طرف اپلیکیشن های دیگه. و هم میتونین یک تودو لیست بسازین. تودو لیست یک اپلیکیشن بسیار ساده شده میتونه که شما یک لیست بسازین، یک ویلیو انتری کنین، یک ویلیو ریموو کنین، یک ویلیو دیلیت کنین از دیتابیس یا از همین لیست ساده که ببینین که چه قسم استیت اپلیکیشن شما کار کرده است، چه قسم کار میکنه. و همینطور میتونن که یک لاگین اپلیکیشن بسازن. برای خود ما که پشت استیت منیجمنت سرچ کرده بودم، وقتی بود که ما در اپلیکیشن لاگین می ساختم. بعد از اینکه ما لاگین در وقتی که ما لاگین می ساختم زیاد استیت می داشت. اگر یوزر در حاضری آریا که حاضری آریا یک از یونیورسیتی افغانستان است که عالی حاضریش همه آنلاین شده و توسط هر شاگرد توسط اپلیکیشن خود حاضری خود میگیرم. پس وقتی که یک شاگرد لاگین میشه باید ما طرف صفحه شاگرد و همون شاگرد ببرم. اگر استاد لاگین میشه باز طرف صفحه استاد و استیت هر استاد یا استیت هر یوزر باید متفاوت می باشد و متفاوت جای ذخیره کنم. برای یک اپلیکیشن بسیار کلان بسیار بزرگ فلاتر بلاک بیست است و من خودم استفادهش میکنم و همون وقت میتونه که شما سر استیت منیجمنت شروع کنین و یک اپلیکیشن توسط متفاوت لیبراری ها بسازین تا که بفهمیم کدام برایتان بهترین است. باز کانتر، تو دو لیست، فلاتر ویدر اپ و لاگین اپلیکیشن شده میتونه که برایتان زیاد کمک کنه که یک استیت منیجمنت را بهترین یاد بگیرین و خوب یاد بگیرین. خب to summarize everything هر چیز سمری کنم یا state management building widgets based on state یه widget دوباره جوړ کو په وخت سره چې کله اپلیکیشن په کم حال کې د اپلیکیشن په وسنی حال باندې نو څنګه فلټر state management زده کو شروع کوي د inherited widget څخه بیا provider ځکه او بیا فلټر بلاک دین وروسته څه کولای شي یو کانټر اپلیکیشن جوړولای شي یو ټو ډو لیست جوړولای شي او یا یو نیوز لیست جوړولای شي چې د اپلیکیشن ستاسو سره ډیر زیات کومک کولای شي چې ته یو فلټر سټیټ منیجمنت ډیر په ساده ډول څخه زده کړې. په اخر کې مننه ستاسو د ټولو څخه. Thank you so much everyone. تشکر از همگیتان از وقتتان.
تشکر پوپل، تشکر بسیار زیاد.
تشکر استاد.
مایکتان آف است استاد.
مایکم آف بوده. من تشکر میکنم از عبدالرحمن پوپل، از تمام اسپیکرهای ما. از اسپیکر اول اگر امروز شروع کنیم از جولیوس که از سنگاپور همراه ما آن شده بود. کسایی که تاک از اونها را مس کردن حتما او تاک را ریکاردش هم ما میمانیم، بعدا او را گوش بکنین. چینل های از GDG ها در کدامش لایوش هست ببینین. ما یکی از فنای چیش هستم، تاکش هستم، ساینتیفیک لیدرشپ، یک کانسپت بسیار جالب است، او حتما ببینین. و مثل از اون تاکای امروز همگیش جالب بود. ما بسیار خوشحال هستم که 2 روز DevFest موفقانه تمام کردیم. و به خاطر خداحافظی ما اینجا آمدیم. از کلگی کسایی که در راندازی از این برنامه زحمت کشیدن، از GDG هرات، از GDG قندهار، از GDG بلخ، از همکارای ما در GDG کابل، از همشان بسیار سپاسمند هستم. با امید فردای بهتر و با امید ایونت های بعدی انشالله که دفست 2021 را حضوری از نزدیک در قصر چلستون ایوان قصر اعظم که خوبتر ببینیم. موفق باشید. بخیر.
تشکر از کل GDG های افغانستان، از همگی ولایات، و تشکر از عزیزانی که به ایونت با ما بپیوستن و سوال کردن، شرکت کردن و ما از سوال از اونا مستفید شدیم و اونا از این تاکایی که ما داشتیم، هم از داخل کشور هم از خارج کشور عزیزانی که تاک داشتن مستفید شده باشن و استفاده کرده باشن. انشالله که به سال بعدی حضوری در خدمت همگی باشیم.
تشکر. کسی چیزی گفتنی ندارم؟ سامی.
تشکر از همکارایی که در راندازی برنامه هم رو همکاری کردن. تشکر از اسپیکرها و افراد مطرحی که آمدن در برنامه صحبت داشتن و در مورد بخش‌های جالب و دانستنی آمدن، حرفای خیلی مفید ارائه کردن و مبارک باشه برای کسایی که جایزه را برنده شدن و چالش ها را حل کردن.
تشکر از همه و حالا بعد دفست فیزیکال انشالله خواهد دیدیم. بخیر باشین، وقتتون خوش.
نجوا جان خودت گپ بزن.
زنده باشید. تشکر میکنم از همگی که همراه ما جان کردن. امیدوارم برنامه خوب بوده باشه به همگی. اوقات شب و روز همتون بخیر. خدا نگهدارتون.
تشکر از تمام کسایی که همراه ما بودن و کسایی همکارایی که همراه ما بودن، استاد جاوید، استاد فوزیه، نجلا، سمی، نیاز و کسایی که آنلاین نیستن. دیگه تشکر از تمام کسایی که آنلاین بودن و برنامه ما را دیدن. انشالله که به گفته استاد جاوید موحد، کسی که همیشه همکاری خدا داشت همراه ما، سال بعدی را حضوری داشته باشیم.
خداحافظ.
خدا شب ما خوش.